Welcome to another insightful session of the Laundry Talkathon. This one is a one-on-one conversation with Ms. Elena Lai, Secretary General ETSA. So welcome to the Laundry Talkathon, Elena. We are curious about the latest developments at ETSA and maybe you could enlighten our audiences about it today.
Thank you very much, Samia. We're very honored to be with you as ETSA, and especially because a lot of our members are also very often part of Talkathon. So it is a great opportunity also for me to tell you a little bit more about our association. We just came out, in fact, of ETSA Congress, which took place in Rome the 11th of May. And we had the opportunities for the industries to gather once again after a long time that you can imagine was characterized by the pandemic. And so we like to call this conference the new normal, because everybody was coming back from this difficult time with a lot of challenges for the textile services and challenges that affected all the supply chain of ETSA, because it's important to understand that ETSA represents as core business the textile services, but we also have the supply chain, so all the textile manufacturers that are part of the ETCA, and also the detergents. So it was interesting to see how these companies have all been affected during this time, and they still, maintain the hope. They have been resilient. They have kept, the level of strength that is needed to overcome a situation like the pandemic. That was not only about challenges, but to be frank with you, this was also a period of opportunities for textile services. We realized in Europe, but also with our partnership in the US, with TRSA US, that the industry had the chance to be more visible all of a sudden. Sometimes you speak a lot about the fact that we are representing services that are essential for citizens, but in Europe, for instance, it's sometimes tough for the government to understand until you really explain in details. And during the pandemic, I think national governments and the European institutions really had a better understand of our industry. So that was something which was recognized during the Congress in Rome. But we also recognize the fact that we have new challenges coming up at the moment. I'm sure that also for you guys, it's clear that there is a global change due to the current war that is affecting all the segment of the sectors. And this is, of course, affecting also our businesses. Some of the largest companies had to freeze their businesses in Russia. And some others are still, in a process of making sure that all the raw materials can be, gathered for the business itself. So it's a tough moment, but the industry is resilient. So that is the kind of message that came out of this Congress. The industry is strong, and I believe this is an industry that can really achieve a lot, and is demonstrating it right now, even if it's in a new normal situation, let's call it this way.
It certainly is a new normal. Elena, going forward, what about ETSA partnerships beyond Europe? What about your relationships with the US?
Yeah, we have a very strong partnership with the US because, first of all, one of our members is also from the US, is the TRSA. And we clearly work on hand in hand on different projects. And we have done that for a while now. And we are strengthening our partnership even more. We will be attending their Clean Show that is coming up at the end of July. And it will be a delegation from ETSA and myself. And it's really a great opportunity to exchange on policies development that they have realized in the US. But we are, of course, also eager to learn from our American partners, and vice versa. We like to exchange, because also in their case they have quite a lot to gather from the work that Europe is doing on textile services. I think the Clean Show in the US will be a great opportunity. There, I think there is a lot on communication and marketing that we appreciate and envy in a positive way from our American partners, because they really managed to give voice to the sector. And as you probably understand, Samia, sometimes it's difficult to make people understand what is textile services. So it's something that the Americans do very well when they use, social media and communication, and we love that. But it's also an opportunity to exchange on more thorough policies. We like very much the way they approach issues like diversity, gender and equality, and also opportunities that they have towards the people that they employ in their sector. Let's not forget that we really work well when our people are happy, and they work well in the environment that we provide, and they are doing really great with that, giving opportunities also well beyond what you would think it's important. Because they, in a recent project that they talked to us about, they are even engaging with the prisons in order to gather people that might need a second opportunity in life. And I think these kind of projects are things that should make us reflect on how we can engage more with people. Definitely in Europe, you are probably aware there is a strong wave of refugees at the moment, especially coming from Ukraine. So I think it's important to reflect, how can we also give opportunities and chances to these people that are, for a temporary or for a longer period, going to stay in Europe. And we discussed this also during our National Association's meeting of textile services, which also took place in Rome. And it's interesting to see how in each member state, there is a current organization to help these people. So this type of project out of the box, it's a new way of thinking also for the laundries, where we can really do something which has also a positive impact on society.
It certainly is a wonderful initiative, Elena, and I really appreciate this thought. Moving on, tell us about the new role of ETSA as climate ambassador for the European Commission, and what does this mean in practical terms for the largest companies and also for small and medium enterprises?
Well, definitely it's an honor for ETSA to have become a climate ambassador. We were appointed in July 2021, and we started being operative from 2022. And of course, this is not a role where you're just out there speaking about how beautiful it is to become a climate ambassador, but it's really pragmatic, in the sense that the European Commission really asked us to be practical and to not only promote good initiatives, but also gather important data that can help the sector to be more green and to be more digital in the future to come. Clearly, the sector that characterizes ETSA is a sector that is living on sustainable practices and sustainable businesses. If you look at all the departments of the largest companies we represent, like Salesiana, Bardouche, Meva, Ellis, just to give you some names, you can see how hardly they are working on corporate social responsibility and the strategies that can help to be more and more sustainable. In reality, the majority of the business of textile services that characterize our companies, but that characterize also small and medium enterprises, has always been a sustainable and circular business. All of a sudden, circularity has become a trendy word in Europe. But all our textile services have always been circular. And so it's it's time to communicate to the world out there that we are really sustainable and circular, and that we can also share our best practices with other businesses and other sectors. This is something that is part, of our climate ambassadorship framework. It means we are there to share the best we do, also in synergy with our detergents company and with our textile manufacturers, because there is a lot that is done, for instance, on recycling that has become crucial in Europe, but it won't have any effect if the rest beyond Europe will not take it into consideration. So we are really monitoring and being also part of projects like the recycling hubs of the European Commission. We have members of the ETSA that are, or ETSA as you call it, also that are really doing a process of recycling that is going well beyond the expectation, because it is needed, and it's done hand in hand with the textile manufacturers. Anything we do as textile services will not have any effect if we do not work hand in hand with our supply chain. So that's something crucial that we are trying to explain when we go out there as a climate ambassador. Of course, we did a pledge also. If you go to ETSA website, you can see what we promised to achieve in 3 years' time. Europe is asking much more than 3 years' time. They ask, they have very strict deadline by 2030 and 2050 becoming, carbon neutral and so on. It's a tough, task for larger companies. So, and imagine for small and medium enterprises. This is something that will need a lot of commitment, but during the ETSA Congress in Rome, we could just see that there is this commitment from the industry. And so it's time to put it in practice, I think.
It certainly is. And now coming to my next point, you see, Elena, we have placed innovation as one of the core topics of discussion for the Laundry Talkathon. So what does innovation mean for you and for ETSA?
Well, innovation definitely means thinking outside of the box. And so when we discuss innovation in ETSA, we try to not just think about the high-tech, innovative new approaches that the industry can create, but it's an overall process of being innovative in the way the large companies, but also the small and medium enterprise decide to operate in the market. Of course, in the first place, we would like to build the laundries of tomorrow. This is something that popped up very, very frequently in the discussions also in Rome. And in order to do so, of course, you have to be more digital. And this is something that sometimes it's easier for larger companies. But sometimes it's a bit more difficult for small and medium enterprises. So we tried to address this specific issue in a way that could encourage both to reflect. And we presented in Rome, but this project lasts 3 years, the Educate project. The Educate project was a European funded project and was used to create a new way of doing remote training for small and medium enterprises, but also for large companies. It started for small and medium enterprises. So all our major national associations like DTV in Germany, the Swedish Association, the TSA in the UK, just to give you some names, were all involved, and also the FBT in Belgium. They were all involved with creating really modules that could be accessed by a mobile application. And so you forget for a second the training that happens in the small laundries, because you will have this mobile application where you can access remotely to all the training. Initially it was tough to change the mentality of people, but it was needed because we were in the middle of COVID. So that had to, the work had to continue, but under certain different situations. But it worked very well. This application is online, it's possible to access it. And for the first time, people, and young and not young people, so it's an application that is for all really, can access it and learn about laundries and practicalities of the laundries that normally you would do on a face-to-face level. So that was the first step. And now there is an expansion of this project. We are opening it up to other national associations in the ETSA because they realized it's important to provide user-friendly tools for the people that work for the laundries. And at a certain point, some largest laundries as well, so largest commercial laundries, have decided also to use the tool. So this is an example, a practical example on how to build the laundries of tomorrow. But it cannot be only, an example that characterizes the high-tech stuff. There is, of course, a lot of work that is done by our suppliers, especially our machineries like Kanagiser or Jensen. They are up to the task and building new machines that will help us to wash better and better, but also to be more sustainable in the way we wash. But innovation is also related to sustainability. So the best way is to be sustainable and innovative nowadays. And so sometimes it's also important to relate the two words really, and the different type of projects where you can achieve this type of innovation. You can be very innovative, but not sustainable. So that should make you think that you have to tick all the boxes, and our largest companies are trying to do this type of work.
This is a very interesting point, Elena. And since you mentioned sustainability, let me address the next question accordingly. The importance of the green and digital transition in the laundry sector. What is ETSA doing to promote the laundries of tomorrow?
Definitely, as far as I already said, there is an important aspect that is done by our companies at the national level, but at the same time, we have to reflect that at the European level with the European institutions, because the European institutions are today really legislating on many aspects that relate to being digital and being green. That doesn't always go in favor of businesses like the textile services. So it's important that we as ETSA manage to anticipate legislation and policy development. So we operate like a kind of lobby in Brussels to make sure that the European Commission and the institutions understand the business and understand that sometimes there can be also difficulties in being more green and more sustainable. And so we need support for that. That is the case, for instance, for small and medium enterprises. We had recently an important request coming from the government, from the European institutions specifically, about making sure that certain specific substances, that here they are called PFAS, will be banned for the use of specific manufactured material like personal protective clothing that we provide as textile manufacturers, but that we also wash as laundries. And it is clear that this material, the PPEs, have this type of substances because these substances protect the citizens. If they are uniforms, for instance, for fire brigades, just to give you an example, that we are obliged to use these substances for health and safety reasons. So the Commission wants to get rid of these substances very fast. that could really be a difficulty for a big segment of the market, for small and medium enterprises that work on the reimpregnation of these PPEs. But we also know, and that's important to say, that the largest companies, that their innovative departments are working on finding alternatives to these substances. So sometimes you have to explain this to the government. You just, have to tell them, okay, we understand your reasoning behind the request, but you have to understand the business. So this is a practical example to tell you, sometimes also policy development needs to be segmented so that the institutional governments can understand that otherwise they would kill completely a business if they go in a completely different direction.
Lastly, Elena, I would like to ask you about the ETSA Awards, which you recently introduced. What have been your learnings from it?
Well, actually, this was our first award, Samia, and we thought it was fantastic because for the first time, we also saw a lot of motivation around from our largest companies, but also from our small and medium enterprises that were also, of course, allowed to participate to the awards. We had the three great winners. We had Bardouche, Lindstrom, and also another, it's called HR. This is because I have to be careful in the way I pronounce it because it's in Swedish, so it's difficult. Bjorman entered Marton. So these awards were focused on sustainability, on innovation, and in the case, for instance, of the Swedish Association, the Swedish company, they brought a very interesting project dedicated to water recycling. And water recycling is also an important aspect of our climate ambassadorship. So it's whatever you do also in the awards, it's important that this somehow correlated also to the policy work that you are doing and that you are explaining to the government. So that's why, of course, there was an independent jury at the time made by the European Technology Platform and by Euratex. But it was very helpful because they could judge really innovative and sustainable projects that are really innovative in the market. The risk is that when you do some awards, something that is considered innovative or most sustainable is something that is already happening. So we really felt we were in hands with Euratex and the ETP because they really are aware also of what's happening in the market. And we really wanted to give the awards to the most important from an innovative and sustainable point of view. But there were many applications, so we thought it was important also to communicate to the outside world other practices, because people can take example, and they were as important. To make you an example, I was very amazed by a practice done by Salesiana. Sometimes when we speak about textile services, we only remember recycling machines, clothes, but no, they brought this very amazing practice of the fact that they gathered a lot of bees in their headquarters, because the bees are an important part of the ecosystem. And if you don't have bees, you will not have life in the planet. So we thought this was also a very interesting practice, even if they were not a winner, because the theme of the Congress in Rome was a theme to discuss the new normal, to discuss the importance, of being sustainable and so on, but also to save the planet because of the future generation that we will have. And future generation and cultivating future generation is crucial for ETSA, not only for preserving the environment, but also in order to make sure we attract the best talent in the industry, Samia. And this was also a topic that was very important for us.
Thank you so much for being with us, Elena. It was wonderful, wonderful speaking to you. Thank you once again for participating in the Laundry Talkathon.
Thank you very much, Samia. I was very honored. I hope I managed to give you some highlights, at least, of what we are trying to do in Europe.
Of course, of course. This was a very insightful and very informative session. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Samia. And
with that, this session comes to an end. Thank you so much, Elena, for being a part of the Laundry Talkathon. It was a pleasure to host you today. For all the audiences, stay tuned for our last session of the day, how to improve your hotel's laundry efficiency.